I want to talk a little bit about personal branding. And no, I don't mean from an influencer perspective or a business perspective. What I mean is, how can you, as a creative, identify what matters, what it is that you want, and how can you use that to create even better? Hi, I'm Chris. If you're new here, I'm a professional writer, and I come on to talk about creativity and writing and try to provide a little bit better clarity for people who are pursuing creative things. So, what is personal branding? It might be a little bit easier to zoom out a little bit and talk about branding just in general. If you're not in marketing, if you're not in business, the idea of branding might seem a little strange, but at the end of the day, it's just about perception. What comes to mind when you think about a thing, about a business? Apple, for example, you might think of innovation, ease of use, sleek, modern technology. And it's not by happenstance that you think about it that way, because companies like Apple have built that perception over decades by tailoring their advertising, their visuals, their products to reflect that. So the idea of personal branding, at least on a surface level, is like doing that at a micro, level, doing that for a specific person. In the influencer space, you see people talk about like personal branding, like who am I, what is my brand? And that's not exactly what I mean here. Personal branding is this thing that kind of comes up in corporate spaces sometimes of like, identify who you are. What are your core values? What are your mission statements? Imagine that you are a business. Figure out what the non-negotiables are. At the core of it, a personal brand is not about aesthetics. It's about a core couple of things. What you stand for, what you create or want to create, what you're uncompromising about, like what is it that you will not budge on, and how do you want to show up in the world? At the end of the day, like who you are, what your brand is the foundation of why and what you do. If you're a creative, you might want to be tackling serious social issues. You might want to bring joy. These are things that are very core to who you are and things that you want to make sure are represented in everything you do. So coming up with a personal brand, identifying who it is that you want the world to see on a daily basis, how you want to show up, can be really important. A great way to start identifying your personal brand is by asking yourself what it is you will never compromise on. What's the hill you will die on? What is the thing that you will stand on your business about? That if it's taken away will absolutely wreck you as a creative and make you feel lost as a result. For instance, maybe everything you create needs to mean something. It can't just be for fun or entertainment, but it needs to have a message. If that's important, that's something that you need to keep in mind every time that you're creating something. Or maybe money isn't the thing for you. Or maybe money is everything to you. You need to also identify that and understand what your value set is. So you can identify, is a job worth it? Is it something that I should pursue if it's just about money, or if there's not enough money in it for me? At the end of the day, your non-negotiables shape your brand because they'll identify what you'll say yes to and what you'll say no to. Another thing that you can do is identify exactly what it is you want. We spend so much time trying to figure out what we should want. We watch social media, we watch our friends, and things tell us, oh, this is who you should be, or this is what you should strive for as a human being, as an artist. But that is so insanely impersonal. And it does not apply to every single person because everybody wants something different out of life. Everybody has different goals and different life situations. And so you have to identify what it is that you actually want for yourself. Do you want to create things that connect deeply with a few people? Or do you want something that can reach wide and attract a mass audience? Do Do you want to experiment without the pressure of being on brand all the time? Or do you want something that's consistent and always seems interconnected to one another? Do you want to build a reputation for being innovative and creative? Or do you want to be something else entirely? Knowing the answer will make it easier to filter out the distractions and focus on what actually matters. And that's the core of what a brand is. Providing focus, providing clarity, getting you to dial in on the things that actually matter and pushing the rest to the side. Another thing is building your brand on purpose. Once you know your non-negotiables and your real goals, you can start actively shaping your personal brand. Not forcing it, but making choices that align with it. So this could look like making work that reflects what you actually care about. Turning down opportunities that don't fit your vision, your opinion, your values, being intentional about the way that you present yourself online and offline, surrounding yourself with people who support the version of you that feels real, not just marketable, not just, a polished up version of you that's presentable to the world. At the end of the day, your brand isn't just about what you care about. It's about how you move through the world. So to help you kind of identify what to look for in this, and maybe some ideas for you as you're doing this exercise, is me share a couple of things that I feel are very core to my personal brand. Admittedly, I haven't fully done this exercise. I haven't, built out a brand book for Chris. I don't know exactly what it is that makes me me. But there are a few core things as a creative and as a person that matter very deeply. Number one for me is staying curious. I value learning and I value trying new things. And so for me, it's very important as a creative and as a person to always be learning, to always be looking for opportunities to improve and to grow and to better shape my opinion of the world and the way that I do things. So for me, that matters a lot. And I want my work to reflect that. I want my work to constantly feel like it's being told through the lens of somebody who is open and willing to embrace the world, not somebody who's closed off and sheltered. Another one for me is finding joy and expressing joy. The older that I get, the more averse I am to challenging work for the sake of being challenging. Whenever I was in college, I felt like the pinnacle of writing, of art, was stuff that was deeply unsettling and stuff that made you just have these mini existential crises every single sentence you read. And the reality is that isn't everything. Not all of the best stuff is that. There's plenty of stuff that is, and there are plenty of people who that is their brand. That is what matters to them, and that's very important to them. But over time, I identified that, for me, the most important thing was to create things that brought joy, or at the very least, brought some level of comfort. I didn't want them to be superficial, but I want to write stories that, make people feel warm and comforted, not sad. And so, that's a very important thing for me as well. Another thing is embracing the beauty of language, embracing the wandering spirits of words. If those weren't a part of my writing, I don't know that I would know who I am as a writer. You can probably tell by the way that I speak, but it's just a natural part of who I am. And pushing that down and not embracing that would make me much more disingenuous. So at the end of the day, your personal brand isn't something you can just put together and make up. Sure, you can create a persona and an alternate version of yourself that, paints this picture to the world. At the end of the day, if you want a genuine reflection of who you are as a person, you have to identify the things in your life that you can't live without and that define who you are and what your purpose is. So ask yourself, what are your non-negotiables? What do you actually want? And how can you make sure everything that you do and every interaction that you have reflects those things? Because at the end of the day, once you know the answers, everything else, the work, your decisions, your path, they'll start to make a whole lot more sense.